Okay, go ahead and open your Bibles to 2 Samuel chapter 20. If you remember, last week where we had left off, David had been rewarding those who had helped him. There was quarreling between the tribes of Israel because Judah were the ones to step forward and bring David back to the throne, and they were jealous of it and that sort of thing. And so we are picking up now in chapter 20. Now, even though Absalom is gone, he is out of the picture, and David is back on the throne. There still were some, not a majority, but there were still some that followed. They were easily swayed, okay, and followed those who followed the same beliefs, okay, and they were close and would have been a close follower of Absalom. And that's what we are going to be seeing right away. Start right in verse 1. And there happened to be there a rebel whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjamite. And he blew a trumpet and said, "We have no share in David, nor do we have inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel." So every man of Israel deserted David and followed Sheba, the son of Bichri. But the men of Judah from the Jordan as far as Jerusalem remained loyal to their king. Okay, so we do have, you will see in verse 2, every man of Israel deserted David and followed this Sheba character. Okay, so when this is saying every man of Israel, okay, it does not mean literally every single male from 16 and up. 16 and up is that age where they were then considered a man and they could be in the military, that sort of thing, It does not mean that literally every single man. However, it was a very sizable portion. However, the one thing is, you will notice, okay, it was not that they drew together, necessarily right together against David. They instead followed Sheba and essentially left the city area at that point. Now this man, when I had mentioned before, people were easily swayed. This man, Sheba, was one that was a lot like Absalom, as in he was the type that's very good to get people to follow him, very, very good at convincing people of things. I'm sure we have all known or know people of that in that manner, that are very, very good at getting their way. Even if it makes absolutely no sense, they somehow, that's the type of person that that Sheba was, and he is convincing these people that David is not the one to be. David is not the one that they should be following. He's not interested in their well-being and such. So he is able to pull a very sizable amount. But you will notice, second half of verse 2 there, but the men of Judah from the Jordan as far as Jerusalem remained loyal to their king. Okay, remember, so who was it? I had just given you a little reminder. The tribe of Judah were the ones that escorted David back to the palace. Okay, that's what we'll say, to the palace. And the other tribes, the other tribes were all jealous about it, threw a fit over it, and yet it's the people from these tribes that threw a fit over it that are now once easily swayed again to follow some other man who is speaking words that just for some reason make sense to them. So as we continue on here in verse 3, now David came to his house at Jerusalem. So one thing I want to point out just as we get into verse 3 here, okay? So we have this, what we could call rebellion going on, okay? These people leaving that area, these men leaving that area to try and mount a rebellion and such. However, what does David do? Does he worry about them? That's not his first worry. He first has to take care of his household, okay? He has to first take care of those matters he has his priorities in the right place, okay? Let's put it that way. So verse 3, now David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, his concubines, whom he had left to keep the house, and put them in seclusion and supported them, but did not go into them. So they were shut up to the day of their death, living in widowhood, okay? At first, when you read that, you think, oh my gosh, David was horrible to these women. You know what? At first, that's what it sounds like. But that is actually the exact opposite of what you're seeing. In today's culture, that sounds absolutely horrible the way he comes back. Because remember, these concubines it's talking about were the ones that Absalom defiled. Okay? And so because of this, and so when it says he did not go into them, it means in a marital way. Okay? He did not go into them in that sense. When he said, or when it says put them in seclusion and supported them, and they were shut up to the day of their death, living in widowhood, okay? In that culture at that time, because of what had happened to those women by Absalom, okay? If he had went and said, well, this isn't a good thing, even though, you are my concubines, that sort of happened, it's not a good picture, go live your lives, okay? They would have lived as long as they could have lived, okay? They would have lived as essentially homeless, absolute bottom of the barrel people, okay? Living on the streets with absolutely nothing, okay? Everyone would have looked down on them. They would have been essentially looked on as the scum of the earth because of what had happened to them. And so what David is doing here is he has shut them up in the palace. It's not that a thing where they're locked in their bedroom, locking them in the bedroom for the rest of the years of their lives. Well, no, they live in the palace. We're not talking about this little thing. This was a pretty big place. They could move about, okay? They could move about the palace, but he took care of them. And by keeping them in, he was protecting them from the outside people and the way they would be treated, because it didn't always stop at just, I hate to use the term just, because it's a big thing, but it didn't stop with just mental torture, okay, I'll put it that way. It went many times to physical, even from children, okay? Because the kids being raised knew, okay? They knew they knew the law, meaning Levitical law. They were being raised in that. They knew that. They knew a lot of the basics. And so many times, even children, if they saw these women in the streets, okay, and they knew of it, okay, they would be picking up stones and throwing stones at these women, okay? Even though, especially in this case, it doesn't matter the circumstances, okay? In this case, Absalom break them. It does not matter on the circumstances. It just, what is the result? The result was this, okay? So that's all they looked at. So David was actually doing the best thing that he really could do for them by, as the term as it uses here, and shutting them up, meaning just keeping them in the palace. They had everything that they would have had everything that their hearts desired. Okay, and when it says in here, he supported them. Okay, just anything they wanted, anything they needed, they had it. Okay, and that was truly the best scenario for them in this circumstance. Verse 4, and the king said to Amasa, assemble the men of Judah for me within 3 days, and be present here yourself. So Amasa went to assemble the men of Judah, but he delayed longer than the set time which David had appointed him. Okay, so David goes and gets this Amasa guy. He is one that, when you study this, he's one that is showing promise. Okay? And this is essentially, you could say, his first real big assignment where he is in charge. Okay, David's giving this guy Amasa a chance to prove himself. This guy maybe is one, let's say, that is maybe there's been a lot of talk. He really wants this higher up position, okay, in the military. That's the term I'll use. This higher up position, he really wants that. There's just always been, they've always been hesitant. Even if maybe it was just something they couldn't quite put their finger on. They just weren't sure that he was ready for it. So David, finally, this is what he's doing. He's like, I'm going to give this guy the chance. This is make or break for him. Okay? All he has to do is go out, get these men together, and bring them back to me in 3 days' time. Okay? This is something that would have been a challenge, but doable. Okay? Not an impossible task. Okay? This would have been something that would have been, it was not a way to put Amasa down. It was a way to try to help build him up and help him to see also if he wasn't able to make the cut, see where he needed improvement or whatever. That is what David is saying. However, he did not come back in that 3 days' time. Okay, so he did fail. So David then said, verse 6, to Abishai, now Sheba, the son of Bichri, will do us more harm than Absalom. Take your Lord's servants and pursue him, lest he find for himself fortified cities and escape us. Okay, so Absalom was one that was good at swaying people. Okay, but by the sounds of it, even though Absalom was not a nice guy, this Sheba took it to a whole new level. I mean, he was ruthless. And David knew, so he first took care of his house, and then he said, okay, the next thing is my responsibility as king. And he knew this Sheba guy. He said, the only way that we are going to, with the type of man this is, and the amount of men he has gathered together, if he makes it to a fortified city, it will be impossible, okay, for us to overtake him, for us to be able to get him, and thus he will be able to essentially escape. So Joab's, verse 7, so Joab's men with the Cherethites, the Pelethites, and all the mighty men went out after him. And they went out of Jerusalem to pursue Sheba, the son of Bichri. When they were at the large stone, which is in Gibeon, Amasa came before them. Okay, so they met up now with Amasa, who was supposed to have brought the men back within 3 days. Now Joab was dressed in battle armor. On it was a belt with a sword fastened in its sheath at his hips, and as he was going forward, it fell out. Then Joab said to Amasa, "Are you in health, my brother?" And Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him. Okay, I'm going to stop really quick here. If you go and look back, we have seen some of it. We have not looked at all of it because we weren't looking at Joab, we were looking at David. Okay, Joab was David's best. Okay, he was his right-hand man when it came to the military, and he was ruthless as well, really, when it came to being, he followed everything to the letter. Okay, he always crossed his T's, he always dotted his I's. Okay, and what he sees is, the way that he sees it is not that Amasa has failed, that it's at this point, Amasa it's gone just beyond not making a deadline. Okay, at this point, it is sheer disrespect to the king, which essentially, when you boil it all down, they looked at it essentially as treason. Okay, so you have this guy, and so what he does, Amasa would have known, obviously would have known Joab very well, the type of man. So Joab made sure that as he was approaching Amasa, that his sword fell off. Okay, which is kind of weird. Okay, you would think that might throw up a red flag for Amasa because, okay, Joab's very well trained and all that. It just doesn't fall off, okay? But the purpose behind it was to try and put Amasa at ease. Oh, okay, he doesn't have his sword. He's not going to kill me. Well, the thing is, yes, sword is for when you are fighting, okay? If you lose your sword, if you are surprised, you're not able to pull a full-length sword out, what else is there? You got the dagger, just like nowadays, I don't know if all do, but some cops, of course, they've got the gun, say, on their hip. A lot have one, something small, but it's still, down, have it hidden somewhere else, maybe down in their ankle or something like that, okay? It's their backup weapon, okay? Well, it's the same thing here. So Joab goes up to him and asks him if he is in health. Hey, are you doing okay? I think that it's twofold. First of all, to make sure that there was not something that had physically gone wrong with Amasa, okay? Because he wouldn't want to just killed him if there was something literally physically wrong. But then also, that question was also a thing of, if there is nothing wrong, it'll also help put Amasa at ease. He would not be on the defensive. And then he even goes as far as to call him and say, "My brother." And then he did basically the same thing that Judas did to Jesus, giving the kiss. Okay, it is the same thing that we're seeing here in verse 9, and then in verse 10 though, but Amasa did not notice the sword, and many different versions call it different things. Okay, this sword is, as Patty said, a dagger. Okay, this is not the full-length sword. This is his shorter dagger-like sword, okay? He did not notice the sword that was in Joab's hand, and he struck him with it in the stomach, and his entrails poured out on the ground. He did not strike him again, thus he died. Then Joab and Abishai his brother pursued Sheba, the son of Bichri, okay? I'd say that's fairly graphic. I don't need to explain anything there. I think everyone knows what that means. Okay. So as he looked at it, he has taken care of a traitor to the throne, a traitor to David. And so now he is going to continue on. Meanwhile, one of Joab's men, verse 11, stood near Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, follow Joab." Okay, so remember, what was Amasa sent out for? He was sent out to gather men. But, okay, so he has gathered men. He just did not bring them back like he was supposed to. So that is who one of Joab's men, so it's most likely, let's say, Joab's right-hand man then, okay, speaks up to this group of men that Amasa had gathered and said, "Who do you serve? Who do you follow?" And then we go on in verse 12. But Amasa wallowed in his blood in the middle of the highway. And when the man saw that all the people stood still, he moved Amasa from the highway to the field, threw a garment over him. When he saw that everyone who came upon him halted. When he was removed from the highway, all the people went on after Joab to pursue Sheba, the son of Bichri. Okay, because of the fact, okay, so Amasa did not die right away. Okay, that is what it means when it says he wallowed, okay? And this, there was, not to get deep into it, but being the type of situation that they were in, the men would not pass by him. There's a lot of different stuff that goes in that we're not going to get into tonight. But when he saw that these men refused to go past him, he's like, okay, well, I need to get rid of this stumbling block. That's essentially what he looked at it as, just a stumbling block. Once he got rid of it, once he got rid of Amasa, the people, all of them, it said, followed Joab, essentially joined and said, yes, we are on David's side. We are on King David's side. Verse 14, he went through all the tribes of Israel to Abel and Beth Makkah and all the Berites. So they were gathered together and also went after Sheba. Then they came and besieged him in Abel of Beth Makkah, and they cast up a siege mound against the city, and it stood by the rampart. And all the people who were with Joab battered the wall to throw it down. Then a wise woman cried out, cried out from the city, "Hear, hear, please say to Joab, come nearby, that I may speak with you." Okay, so sure enough, they have just what David was afraid of. Sheba and his men have made it to a fairly well walled and fairly well fortified city. However, that does not make them stop. They are essentially, if you want to think of maybe some old movies, say they've got, a bunch of guys pick up a log and they're trying to batter in the doors, break down the gate sort of situation, okay? When a woman, and because it was a woman, she knew that there was essentially you could say 50-50 chance that someone might listen to her. However, because she was a woman, she knew that there's also a possibility that, a better possibility, like they're not going to say, oh, look, it's one of Sheba's men. She knew that she would not be a prime target, okay? And she hollers out. And so it's what we're going to see here is that the people of the city were not supporters, okay? They were not supporters of Sheba. Sheba had essentially taken siege of that city, okay, and taken control, or he thought, He had taken control. So she wanted to speak with Joab, this woman did. Verse 17, when he had come near to her, the woman said, "Are you Joab?" He answered, "I am." Then she said to him, "Hear the words of your maidservant." And he answered, "I am listening." So she spoke, saying, "They used to talk in former times, saying, they shall surely seek guidance at Abel, so they would end disputes. I am among the peaceable and faithful in Israel. You seek to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Why do you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord?" And Joab answered and said, far be it from me that I should swallow up or destroy. That is not so. Okay, so this woman is coming forward and saying, we are a peaceable city. We are a good city. We are good people. We support King David. Why are you trying to take all of us? That's what they're feeling like, okay? That is that they're just trying to be taken down. And Joab goes and says, "No, I am not trying to take out the whole city. Okay? I'm not trying to destroy all of you good people. There is one man we're trying to get." Verse 21, "That is not so, but a man from the mountains of Ephraim, Sheba, the son of Bichri by name, has raised his hand against the king, against David. Deliver him only, and I will depart from the city." So the woman said to Joab, "Watch, his head will be thrown to you over the wall." I like how this is, I kind of like just the way this is said and the way she has said it. So, I mean, he's just like, look, no, I have no beef with you. And he also knows the followers, the type of people that followed Sheba, or the ones that are easily swayed. So he knew all he had to do was take out Sheba, and it would all be done. It would be taken care of. Okay? So that's what he said, hey, we just want this guy. And she just goes, okay, well, how about this? Give me a minute. Be ready to catch. Like a volleyball over a net, his head will be delivered to you over the wall. And verse 22, "Then the woman in her wisdom went to all the people, and they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and threw it out to Joab. Then he blew a trumpet, and they withdrew from the city, every man to his tent. So Joab returned to the king at Jerusalem." So this woman goes to the people, meaning her family, her friends in this city. The one, she knew, we are loyal to David, and said, look, they are not for us. All they want is that one guy. Essentially, the people of the city went and said, that's all they want? Okay. we outnumber him, 1,000, 100, whatever, 1,000 to 1, sure, no problem. And so they do exactly what she had said. They beheaded him and delivered the head. And immediately, as soon as that happened, is when Joab blew the trumpet, signaling the battle to cease, that it was done. Their task was done. They were to withdraw everything at that point. The next few verses of chapter 20 we won't look at. They're just listing different officers of the government that David had. That's all that is. Chapter 21, as we look here, we're coming upon a time when Israel is in a famine, okay? Verse 1, "Now there's a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year. And David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered, it is because of Saul and his bloodthirsty house, because he killed the Gibeonites." Now this is the only reference in the Bible of this, okay? Meaning it's not necessarily important to know how it was that Saul went about it, why he decided to do it, yada, 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 whatever, okay? It's not recorded in the Bible of the actual incident earlier, okay? However, it is said here that we are told that he did something, okay, he was not supposed to do, okay? Essentially saying he went up against, for whatever stupid reason, okay, went up against a peaceable people, okay? And killed them. So the king, meaning David, in verse 2, called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. He called them up on the phone. That's the first reference of a phone. He called them. He didn't say he called out to them. Didn't say he sent a messenger. He said he called them. So, Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. The children of Israel had sworn protection to them, okay? This was from back before Saul's time. So that is something that we won't, but we could go back and look at. That was back during Joshua's time, when Joshua was coming into the promised land and conquering the different places, the different cities. This was that city that had, through a little bit of trickery, even though it was through trickery, they had a union. They had a promise made to them that they would never, even though they were not of Israel, they were not an Israelite, okay, they would be left alone, okay? There was a peace treaty essentially between them. And King Saul, like I said, for whatever reason, decided to go against that treaty. Therefore, David, verse 3, said to the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you? And with what shall I make atonement? You may bless the inheritance of the Lord." And the Gibeonites said to him, "We will have no silver or gold from Saul or from his house, nor shall you kill any man in Israel for us." So he said, "Whatever you say, I will do for you." Okay, so David is looking after Israel. They've been in a famine for 3 straight years now. Okay, so it is getting difficult for them. This is another one of those times where the famine is only in Israel. So David, that's why we saw right in verse 1 that David inquired of the Lord. It's like, okay, obviously it is Israel that is suffering this famine, not the outlying cities outside of Israel, okay, out of the Israelite nation. Obviously, there is something going on here. So that is why he called unto God. They had seen this before with Joshua. During the time of Joshua as well, there had been a time of that as well. Things very similar to this. And so he figured they would say, give us all the gold you have in your, or there's a certain, something. He figured, okay, they're going to come up with something. It'll be easy. And I'm sure it surprised David when they said, "We don't want anything out of that palace. We don't want anything in that sense at all. Nothing." And so then David, though, says, "Whatever you say, I will do for you." Verse 5, "And they answered the king, As for the man who consumed us and plotted against us, that we should be destroyed from remaining in any of the territories of Israel, let 7 men of his descendants be delivered to us. We will hang them before the Lord in Gibeah of Saul, whom the Lord chose." And the king said, "I will give them." They said, "We don't want any Israelites." They did not look at the Israelite army as being the ones at fault. They were following orders, okay? So obviously Saul is not around, so what they wanted 7 of Saul's sons. They said, "That is what we want." And you notice, though, and I think that this is, I know, this is God's doing. They did not say we want all of his sons. Because remember, as we will see in a second here, David would not be able to deliver on that. But they asked for 7. Verse 7, but the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the Lord's oath that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. Mephibosheth, as a reminder, was the crippled, the disabled one, that he lived in the palace with David, that David took care of. So the king took Armoni and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of too many vowels there. Whom she bore to Saul, and the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Saul, whom she brought up for Adriel, the son of Barzillai, the Meholathite. And he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the hill before before the Lord. So they fell, all 7 together, and were put to death in the days of harvest, in the first days, in the beginning of barley harvest. Now Rizpah, the daughter of that same name again, took sackcloth and spread it for herself on the rock, from the beginning of harvest until the late rains poured on them from heaven. And she did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. And David was told what Rizpah, the daughter of, the concubine of Saul, had done. Then David went and took the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son from the men of Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen them from the street of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung them up, after the Philistines had struck down Saul in Gilboa. So he brought up the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son from there, and they gathered the bones of those who had been hanged. And they buried the bones of Saul and Jonathan his son in the country of Benjamin and Zelah, in the tomb of Kish his father. So they performed all that the king commanded, and after that God heeded the prayer for the land. Okay, so these 7 sons were hung, and what we see there is that one, the concubine that had been of Saul, what she was doing was she was protecting the bodies from the birds and that sort of thing, because that was as they viewed it, was desecration. Okay, so so it had been a period of time here once David came in and he got all the bones together of Saul and all of his sons, and then where essentially you could say took care of them, as the world would say now, laid them to rest, okay, in the family's cemetery plot, okay, in the family tomb. Right along with Saul's father. And once this was all done and taken care of, was when the famine ended. Let's see, we have a couple minutes left. We can finish 21 here. So we have, even though we have gone through, when I say quickly, it's been a few weeks, but even though it seems like everything has gone through fairly quickly, many, many years have actually passed, okay? Once we get to this point, verse 15 in chapter 21, David is an old man, okay? And that is what he is running into here, is his age catching up with him. Verse 15 of chapter 21, when the Philistines were at war again with Israel, David and his servants with him went down and fought against the Philistines, and David grew faint. Okay, so David is doing what he should be doing, doing his role as king. He is going into war, going into battle as he should. However, his body is starting to give out on him. His body just cannot hold up to the rigors of battle anymore. And the Philistines this was not a regular battle. And I think that is also why we will see in the next few verses to the end of the chapter, why it explains these different men. So that way we can truly know and understand he's not fighting people his size. He's fighting almost Goliaths, you know? Again, you know? And, but at this point, he is an old man. And so it's when he is going against, in verse 16, Ishbi Benob, he's going up against this man that is when he started to grow faint, okay? And this man, verse 16, who was one of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose bronze spear was 300 shekels, who was bearing a new sword, thought he could kill David. Okay, this guy was a huge guy. And he was very strong. And when it said he was bearing a new sword, that is not a thing of, oh, he got tired of his old sword. He was such a soldier, such a man of war, he wore out his old sword. Okay? So that is why he had a new sword. He was not new to battle. He was not, it was not just a thing of, oh, his old one didn't have quite the shine anymore, he wanted a shiny new one. It was not that. He had worn out the old one. But Abishai, verse 17, the son of Zeruiah, came to his aid and struck the Philistine and killed him. Then the men of David swore to him, saying, you shall go out no more with us to battle, lest you quench the lamp of Israel. Okay? What they are saying, okay, so they come to David. It's not a thing of, you know, they were afraid for their lives. And David, you're going to get us killed. Lest you quench the lamp of Israel. Okay, it's there's a lot of I won't share. There's a lot of jokes that have been made along this sort of line, but many different leaders in different battles, no matter what the situation, you know, years and years ago, they would a lot of times as being the let's say the lead captain or general or whatever, they almost always wore white shirts. If they were going into a battle, especially one that they said that they were thinking that this battle may not go good, they would always switch to a different shirt, either red or black, one that would not show blood. As the leader, if they showed blood, if they showed that they were wounded, okay, it could, or typically would, cause the rest of the men, the rest of that army or whatever, to lose heart. Because their leader has fallen. Their leader is wounded, okay? They needed that strong figure. And so that is what they're saying to David. No, Israel looks to you as this great and powerful leader. Our army here, this military, cannot see this happen. Cannot see you falter. Cannot see you having to be protected by one of us. Okay? Cannot see you get wounded. It is for the best of all of Israel if from now on you don't come out on the battlefield. Verse 18, now it happened afterward that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob. Then I hate when they separate the name to different lines. Then Sibbecai, the Hushathite, killed Saph, who was one of the sons of the giant. Again, there was a war at Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan, the son of Jaar-Oregim, the Bethlehemite, killed the brother of Goliath, the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. Does anyone in here, has any of you actually seen or know the size of a weaver's beam? A weaver's beam is made of a very hard wood, okay? So it needs to be able to take a lot of punishment. so it's not very light. They're about 2.5 inches, and anywhere from nowadays 6 to 8 feet long. Back then, they were typically closer to 9 feet long. Okay, so this would have been this would have been a guy who, I've got big hands, but if I was to shake his hand, I would have felt like a little kid. My hand would have disappeared inside of his. When I grab a hold of a 2.5-inch pipe, okay, it's like this. I would never be able to fight with something that big around. I can't grip it solid. It could easily slip out. This is his spear. This is what has to be comfortable for him. So his hands are so large, it wraps right around as if I'm just holding a little, say, a broomstick, a broom handle. That's what a weaver's beam was to him, okay? Like a broom handle. So this is still, Goliath was not the only one. From Goliath, meaning the Goliath from when David was a young boy, okay? He was not the only giant. The Philistines were known. They were a city, they were a people, they were a nation, essentially, of giants. Verse 20, yet again there was a war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was born to the giant. So when he defied Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother, killed him. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath and fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. Okay? So when it came down to it, okay, David, with obviously, as with God behind him, or God leading him, however you want to use that or say that, as a young boy, took out Goliath. And now his men, thus giving the glory to David, has now taken out his Goliath's 4 sons, okay? Meaning essentially they have cut off the name, okay? Let's say the family name of Goliath. That family has been stopped. So that is where we are going to stop tonight. It's quite, as we look at it tonight, it's just, as we finish there, just so many, just one battle after another, that those Philistines, I really wonder if what it was is those 4 sons were really trying to fill their father's shadow, or follow in his footsteps and that sort of thing. And so, and yet they just like their father, every one of them fell. Let's go ahead and close in prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you so much for your word. And Lord, I just thank you so much for this this great book that you have given to us, Lord. And I saw a little thing online that a funny thing, and yet, Lord, says so much truth, that we so often, Christians so often, go pray to you and say, speak to us, and yet here you are, God saying, read my book I gave you. It's me. Lord, I just thank you so much for this and everything that we have in it. And Lord, I just ask your blessing on these people. Lord, the Bible studies and the Wednesday evening prayer meeting this week, in Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Will you write your vacation dates?
Yes.
Yep. My name's okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to, for now, so any that you have planned of yours, let me know too. I'm going to let Tim know that I will, for now,